distinguished guests, speakers, and participants. Good evening from Tokyo, and a warm welcome to this official side event of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development titled Scaling Agricultural Extension in Africa Amid Emerging Technology and Global Aid Shift. This event is co-organized by the Sasakawa Africa Association, SAA, the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFRI, and the African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Service, AFAS. We sincerely thank you to all speakers and audience for joining us today. My name is Seiko Tokusue, the Corporate Communications Officer at SAA, and serve as your MC for today's session. We hope today's program will offer a space for open exchange and shared learning. In the interest of time, let us now begin with the opening remarks from the co-organizers. We'll now start with a pre-recorded message from Dr. Amit Roy, Chair of the SAA.
Good day, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and participants from all across the world. Welcome to this official side event of the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development. The title of the side event is Scaling Agricultural Extension in Africa in the Context of Emerging Technology and Evolving Global Financial Support Landscape. This event is being co-hosted by Sasakawa Africa Association in cooperation with International Food Policy Research Institute and the African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, AFAS, designed to highlight the transformative potential of multi-dimensional agricultural extension model with the integration of the emerging technologies and new norms. We are ready to make significant dent in the way the extension is done. And this will give us some meaningful opportunity to transform agricultural system to improve productivity, increase resiliency, and finally increase the equity of the system. We are very, very grateful to all the speakers who have agreed to participate and share with us their perspective on policies, research, and their experience on the ground. Now, a few words about the Sasakawa Africa Association, SAA. This is an institution which has been in existence for nearly 4 decades. We have been working with the farmers on the ground, with national extension system and the rural community. Our day-to-day engagement has taught us that the real transformation starts with listening, adapting, and responding to the needs of the farmers. From soil health to market access, from finance to nutrition to gender inclusion, we have seen how the farmers respond when their issues and their ideas are taken into account in the development process, reflecting the motto of the Sasakawa Africa Association, walking with the farmer. Today we have a very challenging environment, as most of you have seen over the last 7 months, with the shuttering of the USAID and the significant reduction in the financial support of the overseas development assistance from our traditional donors, our financial challenges remain. But this is also an opportunity to explore extension models that are more resilient, that are affordable, and that are scalable. I'm very excited to adapt to this kind of changing environment, that we are going to explore the digital innovations, particularly the artificial intelligence and the mobile platform. This can contribute and more effective and inclusive extension services, particularly reaching out to the rural communities and providing advisory services. Collect real-time data from the rural community and bridge the gap between the region and the country. And this will give us the opportunity to give the farmers the information that they need, while not forgetting to integrate their knowledge into the whole system and the process. So with that, let me again thank all of you for participating in this webinar, in this side event. And this is a very important side event. And again, thank you for taking the time. We look forward to learning from your experience. Uh, Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Next, please welcome Dr. Stephen Omamo, Director of the Development Strategy and Governance, as well as Director for Africa at IFPRI. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you may be. It is a great honor and pleasure to speak on behalf of IFPRI and to join our esteemed partners, the Sasakawa Africa Association and the African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, in welcoming you all and sincerely thanking you for taking the time to be here. Since 1975, IFPRI has provided research-based policy solutions that sustainably reduce poverty and end hunger and malnutrition. Our work in Africa provides cutting-edge policy research on food and nutrition security to help ensure that all people have access to safe, sufficient, nutritious, and sustainably grown food. We recently developed a strategy for engagement with the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, CAADP, for 2026 to 2035 to reinforce IFPRI's commitments to advancing agri-food system transformation on the continent. IFPRI has worked for many years with the Sasakawa Africa Association, which will celebrate 40 years next year. Congratulations in advance. IFPRI has also collaborated with the African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services from its early days. We congratulate Dr. Lilian Lihasi as she takes over the helm of this important organization. Japan has always had a strong commitment to zero malnutrition, to food security and global poverty reduction. For more than 30 years, IFPRI has partnered with Japan in Africa and Asia, influencing policies and investments to fulfill this joint purpose. Today, these collaborations are needed more than ever. We face the multi-headed planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss, exacerbated by intensifying global food crisis, high costs of food and inputs, and decreasing support of global aid. Africa's agri-food systems have enormous potential to provide jobs and food for a growing population, contributing to food security, economic growth, and poverty reduction. There is great potential if we look at innovations in mechanization, financing, and agricultural practices, the promises of artificial intelligence, and the creativity of the young generation. Agricultural extension and advisory services serve as an enabling institution that facilitates these innovations. Extension is key to providing information, services, technologies, skills, and empowerment. Extension has evolved to use digital tools such as artificial intelligence and to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and natural resource degradation through sustainable and regenerative approaches. Big data and artificial intelligence, such as large language models, have great potential for delivering information to farmers and extension staff. Coupling these tools with innovative delivery channels can tailor advice to local contexts and really make a difference. IFPRI is keen to support the efforts of partners to address Africa's challenges, and there is much more to be done. In spite of challenges and the drop in global aid. Through innovative partnerships and approaches, IFPRI, AFAS, and Japan can build resilience against future crises. We look forward to collaborating in the coming years and to developing a future course of action around scaling agricultural extension in Africa amid emerging technologies and global aid shifts. I very much look forward to today's discussion, and thank you very much again for joining us today.
And now we turn to Dr. Lydian Dihati, Executive Director of AFAS, for her remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, partners, and participants, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you may be joining us from today. It's a pleasure and an honor to welcome you to this important dialogue convened by Sasakawa Africa Association, IFPRI, and the African Forum for Agriculture Advisory Services. As my colleagues have said, we have been partnering in various aspects for a number of years. AFAS has been in existence for over 20 years now, with a mandate from the African Union to enhance the performance of agriculture extension and advisory services. AFAS is generally a platform of multi-stakeholder actors that are interested in extension and advisory services, and we work and implement our projects at the national level through the country fora, who are a platform of partners that are involved in agriculture extension and advisory services. I sincerely thank all of you for taking the time to be part of this conversation on a subject that is not just only timely, but fundamental to Africans' agriculture transformation. Across the continent, agriculture extension is undergoing a quiet but significant renaissance. This renewed interest reflects the urgency of the challenges we face, just as had been mentioned: climate change, declining productivity, and limited access to markets, to the rising cost of inputs, and the persistent need to create employment, especially for our young people and the women. We know that when agriculture extension is well designed and effectively implemented, it can unlock productivity, enable value chain participation, and improve livelihoods. Yet the traditional models, of often top-down and limited in scope, no longer match the complexity of today's farming realities. The call before us is quite clear. We must shift towards pluralistic and multi-dimensional extension systems that not only provide knowledge, but also connect farmers to markets, finance, technology, and networks of support. We must harness the potential of digital tools while preserving the relational value of human interaction. Above all, we must place women and youth at the center, not at the margins of our strategies. As we all know, the global aid architecture is shifting, with donors and development partners placing greater emphasis on local ownership, innovation, and sustainability. This is not a threat. I take it as an opportunity. It is an opportunity to build resilience, an opportunity for inclusive extension systems led by local actors, informed by local knowledge, and supported by diverse partnerships. At the African Forum for Agriculture Advisory Service, we believe that scaling extension is not just a matter of numbers. It is about relevance. It's about integration. It's about resilience. It's about leveraging the aspects that we have at the moment. Leveraging emerging technologies to enhance last mile delivery while ensuring no farmer, especially women, youth, and those in fragile areas are not left behind. It is about aligning with the innovation systems, as has been mentioned by my colleagues, where research, education, agribusiness, and farmer knowledge work hand in hand. As AFAS, we are working so closely with research, together with FARA, together with Reform under the education, what we call the ARIS. And we are working together to ensure that knowledge is disseminated. Knowledge is not left in the shelf, but is reaching the last mile. And it's about securing When we talk about extension services at the moment, we are looking at securing long-term investments from both public and private sources and rooted in strong national systems and guided by continental priorities. At the moment, we are talking about the CAADP Kampala, how we aligned to the CAADP Kampala or the CAADP agenda. This webinar provides a platform to share field-tested models and to explore how this and other innovations can be scaled to reach millions of farmers, particularly in the underserved regions. On behalf of African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, let me thank all our partners once again for their collaboration and all of us for being part and parcel of this exchange. I look forward to a rich and forward-looking discussion. Thank you very much. Let's progress. We can make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Lydian, and to all speakers for your inspiring remarks. We now honor to welcome our keynote speaker. Due to urgent matter, Dr. Kanangire at the African Agricultural Technology Foundation, AATF, is unfortunately unable to join us today. However, we are pleased to share that his colleague from the same organization, Dr. Emmanuel Okobenen, Director for Program Development and Commercialization, will kindly deliver the keynote presentation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Okobenen. Floor is yours.
Can you confirm whether you can see my presentation? I'll be making a presentation.
Yes, we can see your screen, though it's not the screen slideshow mode.
Is this okay?
Yes, yes, this is perfect. Thank you.
All right. Greetings from Nairobi and good afternoon. Chair Sasakawa Africa Association, the IFPRI Director for Africa, and AFA's Executive Director, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers who are on this program with me, or webinar. I apologize again, Dr. Canisius Kananjure could not join due to some unavoidable circumstances. My name is Emmanuel Kubini, the Director for Product Development Commercialization at AATF. I think we've had the initial speeches today. This is a very important topic on the continent. And I think I'm so happy because it's redirecting focus from research to last mile delivery, where we are supposed to be placing attention so that farmers whom we work for and whom you know are basically smallholder farmers, so that they can benefit from science and technology. And I think you will agree with me that while we still have a lot to do around science, research, technology, innovations, it's also very important that we show value for investment in research. And the only way we can demonstrate that is by ensuring that those people we work for do have access to technologies. And these are the farmers. So I'm happy that Sasakawa is leading this, and they are well known for their the impact they are driving in Africa. And AATF, as a technology transfer organization, is happy to partner with Sasakawa as well as other organizations on the continent to make a big difference, especially in the 21st century. I will be looking at some key issues regarding the status of extension on the continent. What does emerging technologies, how does that shape the future? What enablers should we be looking at as we are focusing on AI-driven agricultural extension? And what immediate changes are needed in the extension landscape? Some of you are very familiar, but just to give some brief background on AATF, we are an emerging powerhouse in agricultural technology, which is very critical because if Africa must be competitive, then we must deliver technologies that will put African farmers in good position in the markets. And then we present a wide choice of agricultural innovations. we carefully select the kind of technologies we give, but again, we try also not to duplicate. Basically, is to drive food and nutrition security in line with Africa 2063 agenda. So we believe also that farmers must be competitive. And for them to do that, they must use right technology, combine it with best practices, and then ensure that there's some value addition to that process, while also driving their ability to access efficient markets within and outside Africa for good economic transformation. We do a lot of things, but I won't have time to go into this now. But I just want to tell you again that technology is key. You may have good extension, you don't have good technologies, it's not going to work. But if you have good technologies and you don't have good extension, it's not going to work. So the idea here is that you don't have your solutions, as solutions until you deliver it at the right place where it is most needed. But we have also adopted commercialization, all right, as one of the key ways to generate value for money. People will not just join you because you want them to get involved in an activity, including extension. So that's very critical. And we also believe that creating an enabling environment, which policies do support, is also critical. And this is what we bring in the private sector. But again, climate resilience climate change resilience is also very important. We need to create business. We need to see how we bring in nutrition. Emphasis has been on food security, but that is not sufficient. And we need also to build strong evidence to support some of the things we share with our stakeholders. So we use different approaches, but some of the things we do, apart from acquisition, we have an IP management approach here in ATF. We have lawyers in our system because Africa must get the best technologies that puts them in good position. And management is critical to adapt it. But again, we are delivering unique technologies that require that we build strong capacities that yet do not exist on the continent. For example, stewardship is very crucial for biotech. And PPP is also very important there. But I already spoke about commercial agriculture and what enabling environment will mean. A lot of things are in that place: seed systems, input systems, creating knowledge, regulatory systems, market systems, policies are there. But at the end of it all, it must speak to the TICAD9 strategy and implementation plan, the SDGs and AU African 2063 agenda. So what are the situations we have in Africa? We all know this very well. Most of these things are not new to you. So low agricultural productivity, we rely too much on rainfall. We have soils that are not properly maintained, weak market access that does not spur the subsistence farmer to want to adopt technologies, poor rural infrastructure, limited access to good quality inputs due to low, poor, or inefficient regulatory systems, aging farming population with youths not interested, low public-private investment, weak policy frameworks, poor integration. These are well known. They're just trying to reiterate that point. So what is the current status? We feel that extension systems are outdated, basically. What we have on the continent, there has not been investment in that space. And then technology exists, but do not reach the farmers. I mentioned that earlier. Climate change is a new threat. And how do we adapt and address that issue? So ATF plays a great role there, but these are some of the key things we have. But again, the traditional models we've used lack scalability. The continent is big. The rural areas are still opening up. We must find a way to reach them. Low extension to farmer ratios, 1 to 3,000, in some cases, 4,000 in some countries. Least is that you don't have good investment yet. And I have been in research for so long, but it doesn't make sense for you to do research and at the end, those you do the research for don't see what you are doing. And then the fragmented programs in countries are also a problem. But I think also that extension has been de-emphasized for too long. It's just all on having technologies. But your technologies will not fly if you don't develop that. So that's just it. And the approaches we have, because Africa is heterogeneous, you cannot use one system all through. Analog systems are there, and then limited capacity building. So these are some of the situation we have. This is not all exhaustive, but this is the key thing on the continent, and this is what it looks like. Now, how do we change that landscape of agricultural extension, which is the new reality? So the issue here is that rising demands for real-time data-informed and pharmaceutical extension models are critical. So, so we must look for real-time data-informed models. But the issue here is, do we have data on the continent? And AI will depend on that. Then we need more innovative approach of financing extension, bringing in the blended finance, the private sector, participation. All right, that will be very critical. Then we must tie it to socioeconomic transformation. Youths are very critical to the future of the continent, and we also have to take that into consideration. Then local ownership and sustainability are no longer optional. So whatever we do, we must integrate African governments, the African people. I know we have the International Agricultural Research Centers coming in, but the local ownership is very crucial. And of course, in building trust. The other thing there is, what are the possible emerging solutions? We also know that AI is now powering advisory platforms. We need the big data analytics for personalized farming recommendations. Africa is big, ecologies are big. Even within an ecology, things are also different. How do you customize your farming approaches to suit your environment where you are doing business? Satellite imagery, drones, they are growing up in Africa, sensors, remote diagnostics. How are we doing with those? And these are coming in now into Africa, but they are not expanding as fast as we would want. Chatbots, USD platforms are crucial for last mile outreach. Smart mobile and cloud-based platforms. Blockchain for traceability and inclusion are very key. Those are the kind of things, if we build them, it will attract more investors in the belief that they will be able to, justify their investment and be able to explain, bring in an analytical touch to some of the things they do around business. We have done some in AATF, like Hello Tractor. We are involved in mechanization, but you need a lot around mechanization. We need to do predictive analytics for our tractor services, tracking, and many other things. We are also developing smart weather stations all over, to where we put ground truthing sensors to get a good understanding of productivity in the face of climate change. We are monitoring moisture content on the ground at the ground level. We've also brought in an agri-drive, which is linked to our mechanization. Here, what it does is that we provide services to farmers. Those who need inputs, they can also call for services for mechanization. We provide them market information and all that. It's growing, but these are some of the things to do. But for us, while they take advantage of these services, it's about creating that capacity among farmers, creating that knowledge with them to understand that they can really do much more. So the issue there is that we bring scalability, and then we also bring empowerment in the area of digital technologies. And so these are some of the areas that we are doing, but a lot can still be done beyond this. In terms of enablers, infrastructure needs massive improvement on the continent, especially in the rural areas. We've just done TICAD, a conference we did in Rwanda. We spoke about farmer-centric design of accessible AI tools, all right? And then capacity building. We need to create digital literacy for farmers. Actually, we are even converting some of the languages we use to local languages, not just English in the countries where we work, or French. So we are looking at that. And then policy and regulation is so critical, not just for extension, but also for research and technology uptake. Then institutional collaboration is key. I mentioned Sasakawa, we also work with AGRA and many others. That's very crucial because you don't have enough resources to be able to do extension. Extension services actually can be very expensive if you want to get results. And sustainable financing, I mentioned about blended finance. So these are key things that are crucial. What immediate changes are needed on the extension landscape? We need to migrate from analog to intelligent systems. We did that also because in our agri-drive, we want farmers who are not having smartphones to be able to access information, and that has worked very well. We need to transform from subsistence to commercial farming. Now, we want to see a situation where extension is demand-driven, and it's only demand-driven if it can be linked to productivity and good income to farmers. So they look for technologies, and they will have to depend on extension officers to be able to get the information they require to be able to make good profits. We need to connect to isolated farmers who are often not mainstreamed, and because Africa is big and many are in rural areas, those who don't have connectivity can get into. We need to shift from blanket advice to precision guidance. We're not saying completely, we're looking at smart farming, of course, where possible. Precision farming can also be possible because it helps you to manage your resources efficiently. We need to also be inclusive. We want to get women and youth on board. We need to be proactive rather than being reactive, and then change fragmented service delivery into integrated ecosystems. So these are some of the things we recommend, but again, for every country, the challenges are unique, and this is what we have to do. So to summarize this, I'm just saying that we need to truly transform African agriculture. We must evolve with our extension services in a way that farmers can benefit. But I think also that the way investments are done on the continent and are supported by international donors also need to change. You need to frame into such projects and proposals the needs of those African countries. We need also to get the African Union, the continental bodies also to see things differently. But above all, there must be strong ownership to what is going to happen. It should not be a top-down approach. We need to get the African National Agricultural Research Extension Services, all right, to be able to make strong input, feel they have that ownership, and also to be able to factor in clearly the role of the private sector so that they can bring investments because government alone cannot do it. If we do that, then we shall be able to bring a much good difference in successfully integrating digital tools and artificial intelligence in driving a 21st century extension systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okobeni, for your powerful keynote. We now move to a special report that explores the potential of AI in agriculture extension. Please welcome Dr. Elliot Jones Garcia, Senior Research Analyst at IFPRI. The floor is yours, Elliot.
Hello, thanks for having me. Can you see my slides and hear me all right?
Yes, we can see your slide.
Wonderful. Thanks again for having me. My name is Elliot Jones Garcia. I'm a Senior Research Analyst at IFPRI, working at the Natural Resources and Resilience Unit. And I'm also a PhD student candidate at Wageningen University. Today, I'll be speaking about the role of AI in scaling agricultural extension services, what opportunities it presents, the risks we're encountering, and the future design agenda. I'll be drawing on ongoing research and field collaboration across Africa and South Asia to reflect on how these tools are being deployed in real-world settings. So, AI is quite a broad and evolving space. It broadly refers to any kind of machine that can mimic human decision-making based on data. That includes everything from yield prediction to pest detection systems. But to narrow the scope a bit, today I'll be focusing on specifically generative AI and how it's beginning to reshape agricultural extension. So many of you will have heard of tools like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. These models have changed how people think about information access and communication. They're trained on vast data sets and can produce natural, coherent responses to complex questions. In agriculture, these generative models are gaining traction as promising tools to provide timely, relevant advice. In this presentation, I'll be drawing on one example in particular, Farmer Chat. Developed by our partners at Digital Green, it's one of the most advanced and widely deployed generative AI tools for smallholders agricultural advisory today. So in terms of opportunities, generative AI creates new possibilities for reaching farmers at scale. AI-powered chatbots can provide 24/7 access to agricultural advice, especially for farmers underserved by traditional systems. In Kenya, where extension agent to farmer ratios can reach to 1 to 4,000, this kind of always-on support is already helping to close critical information gaps. These systems can also deliver localized and language-sensitive responses. PharmaChat, for example, operates in 6 languages and multiple dialects, supporting multimodal input like voice and images. Another advantage is knowledge continuity. Unlike many traditional advisory services that are episodic, generative AI can recall previous queries, tailor follow-up suggestions, and offer consistent guidance over time. And finally, these tools are cost-effective to deploy. Once the model and front-end infrastructure are in place, chatbots like PharmaChat can be rolled out rapidly across regions with minimal additional staffing. So these are some insights from the deployment of PharmaChat. You'll see that it's already reached 279,000 users across 5 countries, with the largest share in India, followed by Kenya and Ethiopia. Kenya alone accounts for 20% of users, which reflects both the demand for advisory support and the strength of local partnerships. The system has handled close to 3 million queries, with 7,000 new questions coming in every day. Has a significant level of engagement, and it speaks to the need for timely, trusted information. The average user asked 8.5 questions per month, suggesting that this isn't just a one-time tool. It's becoming part of farmers' regular routines. In terms of inclusivity, 20% of users are women, though another 21% are still unclassified. Importantly, around 89% of users are farmers, with the remainder being extension agents and agri-entrepreneurs, reinforcing this platform is reaching frontline users directly. Usage is also sticky. 28% of monthly active users and 36%, 28% are monthly active users, and 36% of them return on a weekly basis. That kind of retention is rare in digital advisory tools, and it's just the value is being delivered and sustained over time. Finally, the platform has scaled rapidly, showing 14 times growth in just 9 months. And so, in terms of qualitative insights we're gaining through the field, we've seen that that women and marginalized farmers often ask questions through PharmaChat that they wouldn't feel comfortable asking a human advisor. The bot becomes a kind of safe space, and that opens up new channels for inclusion that traditional advisory models often miss. We've also seen that operating through WhatsApp rather than a standalone app is not trivial. It significantly reduces onboarding time, builds on users' existing familiarity with the platform, and increases trust, especially among those skeptical of unfamiliar digital tools. And it's not just about trust. WhatsApp also becomes a bridge, allowing us to link to other tools like Plantix for pest diagnostics, while keeping everything inside a single conversational interface. That makes services feel more connected and easier to navigate. We're seeing that trust is built gradually. Farmers often test the advice on a small part of their land. When it works, they share it with their neighbours and groups. That kind of peer validation is something we rarely see with static advisory tools, and is a major driver of uptake here. And finally, PharmaChat is constantly learning. Every conversation is logged and analysed. The team uses that data, along with farmer feedback, to refine the advice, fill knowledge gaps, and improve how information is delivered. So, while the potential is clear, there are real challenges we need to address if generative AI is going to support farmers effectively. First is the issue of limited contextual data. Most generative models don't have access to structured, location-specific agricultural knowledge, like local norms, values, or practices. This can limit the relevance of the advice, especially when models rely on general internet content or globally trained data. Second, there's a risk of harm. Poor quality training data, limited human oversight, or weak domain adaptation can result in confident but incorrect answers. We've all heard of the notorious hallucinations. In a context like agriculture, where farmers' livelihoods are at stake, even small errors can have serious consequences. And finally, there's often a misalignment with how farmers actually make decisions. Many GenAI systems optimize for fluency and factual correctness, but ignore the social, economic, and risk-based factors that shape farmer behavior. Farmers aren't asking open-ended questions in ideal conditions. They're making constrained decisions under pressure with limited resources. So, while Gen AI can scale access, these challenges remind us that scale alone is not sufficient. Trust, local knowledge, and contextual fit are critical if these tools are going to deliver the real value on the ground. So looking ahead, there are promising directions emerging from both practice and research. First is data innovation. Every query submitted to Farmer Chat is a signal for where existing content is missing or unclear. By treating user queries as data, we can build feedback loops that guide what knowledge needs to be collected, verified, and made machine readable. Second is human-centered reasoning. Many LLMs are good at reproducing textbook knowledge. Real impact comes when they can reason more like farmers, working through uncertainty, weighing trade-offs, and responding to resource constraints. Designing models that match farmers' mental models will be key to making that advice usable and trustworthy. You'll see in the image below here is an exercise we did at the AFAS conference in May, trying to learn from extension officers on the ground. As has come up earlier, language inclusion remains a frontier. Most Gen AI tools still underperform in low resource languages. Building support for local languages and dialects, not just translation, but full semantic alignment, is essential to expanding access equitably. And finally, we need systematic stress testing. Red teaming exercises, where we deliberately probe for harmful, biased, or simply unexpected outputs, help us map the limits of these systems. In Farmer Chat, this has already surfaced issues around gender representation and technical ambiguity, and it's helping the team evolve the tool responsibly. And so with that, I will leave you. I'm quite pleased to say that I'm a bit ahead of schedule. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join for the question and answer, but my email address is here, so please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones Garcia, for this very interesting field example and also valuable insights. We now turn to a broader overview of extension in Africa today. Please welcome Dr. Kristen Davis, Senior Research Fellow at IFPRI. Dr. Kristen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good day to everyone. It's nice to see so many of you on the call, and I'm looking forward to interacting more with the Q&A after we complete the presentations. I'm just swapping my presentation here so you can see the full view. So we've been hearing about reimagining agricultural extension in light of opportunities, but also crises today, and how we can harness artificial intelligence. I want to talk a little bit about sustaining and scaling these multidimensional and digital extension programs across Africa going forward. What does it mean to sustain and scale? These two terms are actually closely connected according to CIMMYT. Scaling is basically expanding projects or programs to greater levels, greater numbers of people, or to more geographies or countries. There's three important dimensions to scaling. One is that impacts should benefit many. So a lot of people should benefit, but also these results should carry over beyond the project context, and communities should be able to transform for the better to impact many people. Systems change means that you bring about lasting change by altering the underlying structures and mechanisms that make the system operate in a particular way. Things like policies, routines, relationships, power structures, and resources are all part of system change. And then finally, sustainability is the degree to which program improvements can persist once the external support, the external funding has been removed, or they've been absorbed by the communities or by the clientele. That's what sustainability would mean. Diving deeper into scaling, what are some basic lessons that we can think about when we're scaling and sustaining multidimensional and digital ag extension programs? The first is that we need to change our mindsets, the mindsets of everyone in the system. Think about scaling as a process. High adoption is really irrelevant if it doesn't lead to sustained and positive change for both people and the environment. Also, context matters. Scaling really depends on the enabling environment rather than the qualities of the innovation or innovations. So we have to think about the supportive political, social, business conditions, as well as the actor dynamics. And these actor dynamics really affect scaling and innovation as well. And thirdly, innovation and scaling of innovation is not linear. It happens in phases, right? And we need these different skills, capacities, and networks to make it happen and to navigate through the different phases as we scale. And lastly, scaling is not necessarily good, right? We need to be responsible when we're trying to make these large changes in fragile communities, and to consider the unintended consequences and the social and environmental consequences that can result as a result of scaling. Looking particularly at program sustainability, this is the continuation of a program within an organization. It means the ability to maintain these program outcomes and the benefits. And importantly, it's the capacity that is built to continue the program. Capacity of individuals, but also organizational capacity. And we can even think about system capacity. These are all needed for sustainability of ag extension programs. There's 4 pillars of sustainability. So the human pillar is really the investments in the health, education system, access to services, knowledge and skills. These are all areas of human sustainability. Social sustainability focuses on maintaining and improving quality, the social quality, with concepts like cohesion, reciprocity, and honesty, and also the importance of relationships among people. These are important components of social sustainability. The economic pillar is simply the efficient use of assets to maintain profitability over time. And then lastly, we have the environmental pillar. This is protection of natural capital in essence, but it's also meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs of future generations. This is according to the RMIT University. Finally, some additional considerations. To sustain and scale multidimensional and digital agricultural extension, we need to invest more in science and in data. We need this renewed commitment to ag research, to extension science. We need to leverage real-time data and to inform policy and programming through this. Climate resilience is another important consideration in today's world, and particularly in Africa. There's this widespread urgency to adopt regenerative practices, climate smart practices, and to enhance the resilience of smallholder farming systems. And extension has an important role here. Also for extension, gender equality and social inclusion, as always, is an important consideration to think about access, power relations, who benefits, who doesn't benefit from different innovations. And we need to continue the acceleration of innovation uptake. So to translate the innovations into scalable and fast impact solutions that make real impact on farmers and farmers' livelihoods. All of this requires innovative financing models. We need to fund the programs to reach the farmers and to do it well. Evidence shows that when farmers actually pay for the services that they're receiving, they're a lot more empowered to negotiate their demand for services, to feedback and make service providers accountable to them, regardless of whether they're also partially supported by government programs or NGOs. They need to be involved in paying for services. And there's examples here, for example, sustainable alliances between producers and more downstream firms like agri-processors, exporters, or supermarkets. And this can be done with government support, but it needs to be a bit of an innovative financing model that we look at. And then finally, we can't do it alone. In today's complex world with the many problems that we face, we need partnerships for impact. We need to have all hands on deck, and we need to deepen collaboration across policy, research, extension, development, and the private sector to drive the systems level change that I think we're all aiming for. And then we also need multi-sectoralism, right? So these problems that we're facing today can't be addressed by one sector or one ministry alone. We need to consider extension, the agriculture ministries, education, health, gender, youth. There's different ministries that we need to involve, and we need to have more coordination and collaboration there. With these considerations and thoughts on sustaining and scaling multidimensional agricultural extension with a digital thrust, I trust that extension services and the smallholder farmers that they support here in Africa will weather the current crisis and will become more robust and more relevant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davis, for that comprehensive and very forward-looking overview. We will now hear practical experiences from the field, highlighting multidimensional approaches to extension. First, we welcome Dr. Rosemilda Burungi, Senior Technical Lead at AFAS. The floor is yours, Dr. Rosemilda.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Allow me to share my screen. Okay. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can, but if you can make it slideshow mode. And now I think it stopped sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, is that right?
Yeah, this is perfect. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, keynote speakers. Thank you, Dr. Christie. And also I would like to thank my ED, Dr. Lillian, and then also all other important speakers that have spoken before, our colleagues from IFPRI, Sasakawa, and AAT. This is a presentation on the strengthening agriculture extension in Africa through continental initiatives and local innovations. And I'm presenting this on behalf of AFAS. I am the technical lead in charge of Africa Agriculture Extension and Advisory Services. We do appreciate that the experiences that I'm going to share here have been accumulated by AFAS due to the project experiences from CADEP XP, which is an EU-funded program, with then IFAD and also AGRA, which have been instrumental, as well as the collaboration that we have had with Sasakawa across different Africa countries. I would like to say that in terms of context, the context of Africa's agriculture is mainly multidimensional, looking at the natural resource-based consumables. We have water, we have plants, and so it is an integrated aspect that involves many dimensions. We have also issues of women centrality, where women are taking center, like Christine has just mentioned, in terms of agriculture production, innovations for market access, innovations for quality control. And also we are seeing something very unique in the Africa's agriculture landscape, that youth-led innovations are becoming very, very important. So the youth are innovating through different programs, including hackathons. You can see youth are innovating to bring about change in the way we have been doing agriculture. Very important in terms of the context of Africa's agriculture is the high-value products that seem to be emerging from the previous conventional products that we had, poor quality, but we are having like hybrids of fish, for instance, that are destined for European markets and other international high-end markets. And also another thing that we are seeing is a shift in agricultural enterprises that were traditionally non-commercial, like chicken rearing, is now becoming an agricultural enterprise. So in Africa, I must say that the landscape has changed, and therefore we need to pay attention on what is happening. However, as things are changing in a positive direction, we still have some challenges in the Africa landscape, especially with extension. As colleagues before have mentioned, we have a weak extension system in terms of effective and cost-effective extension, effective in a way that we would like to see change in terms of knowledge, innovations, technologies, and services that we give to the farmers and other agricultural actors. And this is worsened by the increasing cost of extension, including time poverty. People do not have time, and therefore you know that extension is a time-consuming aspect, but with increased time competition for other resources, it weakens the extension system, as well as digitalized extension. It is becoming very expensive, but imperative that digital extension is being embraced. Both software and hardware digital infrastructure is expensive. The data, the airtime, the internet, the gadgets, a smartphone does not go for less than $100. And so digitalization is imperative, but it is expensive, and this weakens the extension system. Another daunting challenge is the low investment in Africa's agriculture trade acts. At AFAS, we have characterized these dimensions as important, and as previous speakers have mentioned, the issue of trade, research, education, development agencies are shifting priorities, and also governments as well are shifting priorities. So the investment is getting lower and lower, and this is worsened by the shift in the global financing mechanism that is getting more competitive. We used to be called to submit proposals, but now even getting an opportunity to submit a proposal is a competition in its own process. So these are very big challenges. And lastly, one of the big challenges that I also see on the Africa agriculture landscape is the complex and changing agrarian landscape of Africa's agriculture. This is even worsened by the shrinking agricultural land. We are having inverted demographics, where we have more youth, but less in agriculture, and then we have more elderly, but who are more into agriculture. So these inverted demographics are a big challenge, and they create a complexity within Africa's agriculture. We also have the challenge of climate-induced migrations. Humans are migrating, livestock are migrating, farming systems are migrating, and this is becoming a big problem, as previous colleagues have said, and it's widening the extension agent to farmer ratio, as it has been mentioned before, and against the recommended one extension agent to 500 farmers, which is a standard indicator in the SDG framework. So Africa's agriculture is becoming very challenging. And this is impacting on the extension landscape. Continuously, we are seeing low production, low productivity, natural resource deterioration in the farming system. We are seeing low and reduced attractive funding for Africa's agriculture priorities. We are seeing replacement of agriculture as a core source of livelihood, especially for rural farmers in Africa. And this is making livelihoods very fragile, because people are looking for alternatives that can sustain them beyond agriculture. And then lastly, we are seeing one of the impacts is the relocation of production resources to other alternatives. Land is being converted into buildings, is being converted into manufacturing spaces. We now have a very big issue of resource conflict, the rare earth minerals extraction, which is a very big transactional aspect for Africa. And most of these agricultural resource-based countries or landscapes in Africa are the ones that are hosting rare earth minerals. And therefore, and you know what it means, a rare earth mineral, to extract it, it requires a lot of land to be degraded to be able to get a smaller portion of a rare earth mineral. And this all is happening on the Africa landscape. And but this is not all lost. As AFAS and our partners in Africa, we have realized that this is a challenge and the impact is huge and continuously to happen. Therefore, we are looking out for solutions, innovations that can strengthen the Africa's agriculture system. In doing so, AFAS and its partners across the Africa landscape, we are working out the archetypes for last mile extension delivery. And this is a multi-institutional mechanism for strengthening agriculture systems. We are working with support from AGRA, which is ongoing, to work in 5 countries and work out an Africa-wide archetype that can bring different institutions together. So 2 archetype frameworks have been identified and are continuously being built. The foundational archetype was the Rwanda Customized Agriculture Extension System, which is called CAES. And then the build on is the Burkina Faso Agriculture Extension Advisory System, which is more driven by the community-led extension officers, whom they call the indigenous animators. So in Rwanda, it is more of putting institutions together so that they all work together. And so we are blending these case by case and country by country as AFAS, with support from AGRA's ongoing project for last mile delivery, so that we can have an archetype that can be spread across Africa and utilized to deliver last mile extension. The other aspect is looking at holistic extension models, as colleagues had already been said, bringing on all the other actors into the funding mechanism so that we can be able to address issues at a go. And one of these is what we have just been compiling as AFAS with support from AGRA, the last mile delivery models for agriculture extension. We have profiled a number of them, close to 15 models, and we are continuously reviewing them so that they can be pre-tested for uptake, and then they provide a framework. Lastly, in terms of solutions and initiatives that we are just touching base with, is the ideology of silos no more. This was our theme in the Africa Extension Week in Malawi, and all actors, and that is why you see, like in this webinar, AFAS is partnering with IFPRI, with Sasakawa and AATF and other partners who are already participants without presentations on this platform, so that let's all work together. And one of the institutional frameworks, we are coming up with the Africa Extension Coalition that involves all institutions, so that we can have a shift of Africa's agriculture extension from being a pathetic service, but rather to be an attractive investment sector. And from that, we think that we can have some takeaways from our experiences. One of the takeaways that I can say is that from this experience, it is important to have institutional alignment so that we can enable uptake of innovations that are transformative. So if institutions, whether ministries, non-government organizations, in this shift of funding, can be able to come up to and work together, enable up to have a change in Africa's agricultural extension landscape. Another thing that we have also seen that is very important and can be a takeaway from this webinar is a shift in perception orientation of Africa's agriculture. We need to shift from looking at Africa's agriculture as a pathetic sector. Even the imagery we use for Africa's agriculture, people in torn clothes, in dirty clothes, without shoes, is the image we use for Africa's agriculture. I think the time has to change. And then we go into a domain that attracts investment. Agriculture, Africa's agriculture is a potential for investment, and let's turn around the tables and move it away from being pathetic. The other aspect is to pay attention to the demographic transformations. Africa's population has changed. We have innovative youth, we have women entrepreneurs, we have shortened extension pathways, whereby digital extension solutions have even shortened the distances, the interactions, the networks, the frameworks that we have to use to take information to the farmers and vice versa. Lastly, as a takeaway from our experience as AFAS, we need to reformulate agriculture research analytics to rightly inform agriculture extension. We are still using perceptions, data, orientations that are in the old paradigm, not appreciating that we are into a new paradigm. And this is very important to inform trade. This is important to inform education, like my colleagues have said, and therefore research analytics need to be reconfigured, and we come up with new methodologies, new analytical frameworks that can inform the way forward for strengthening Africa's agriculture extension and advisory system. So with that, I would like to thank you and continue to say my key message is that the image we use for Africa's agriculture must change. We have productive resources, beautiful products like cocoa that I'm showing here, beautiful bananas, beautiful maize, but we have always been portraying poverty, failed production, low crop productivity, and this image has to change from Africa's agriculture being a pathetic image, but rather an attractive investment, and therefore agriculture extension will be more meaningful and transformative. From the perspective of AFAS, which is the Africa Forum for Agriculture Advisory Services, we say that the time is now to rebrand agriculture extension, to reconfigure agriculture extension, and to re-image agriculture extension so that agriculture is not a pathetic sector, but an attractive sector for investment. With that, I beg to submit and stop from here. Thank you for the opportunity to our AFAS, and thank you for the opportunity to me to share my thoughts and my experience of over 25 years working on value chains and agriculture extension in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rose Miruta. That was a very powerful takeaway messages. Now, please welcome my colleague, Mr. Robert Anyan, Country Director of SAA Uganda. The floor is yours, Robert.
Thank you very much, Sayako. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start with my presentation with this very famous slide presented by Dr. Mel in Malawi. Why are we here? And I would like to use two countries to able to put forward why we need both the public-private extension service delivery. Uganda ratio of farmers to extension worker is 1,950. Ethiopia is already around the ratio required, 1 to 450. But if you look at Uganda climate condition, we have two cropping seasons, meaning an extension worker will take over 90 days to complete one cycle of reaching every farmer. For example, the average numbers of farmers per in a group is 25, meaning one extension worker has to work with 78 groups. And in Uganda, with 4 cycles of crop from pre-season, planting, mid-season, harvesting, and marketing. That means by the end of the 6 months, this extension worker will have been able to reach only 50 groups, making life difficult for the rest. But what if we have a system sponsored by the private sector, working hand in hand with the local government and NGOs like Sasakawa, and it costs you only $8 per farmer over the next 2 years. And that system, everyone knows they call it the CBF, community-based facilitators, but sometimes we believe in mindset change. And to get the private sector in, we definitely want to create commercial sense of it. So Uganda has been promoting what we call the commercial community-based facilitators, with the aim that this system becomes self-reliant, income generating, farmer gain access to inputs, market, and advisory services, and the risk is so low, and you see real impact. Who is the CCBF? A local trained, mentored rural agripreneur based in a village, reaching an average of 1 to 200 farmers, linked to a trader, a cooperative, working in close collaboration with a local government extension worker, offering various services from input, mechanization, bulking, and financing. That's the kind of person we're looking for. And some of them have been called village agents, village service agents, but all with the purpose of making sure services are delivered to the farmers. Remember the ratio to essential worker to Ugandans was one essential worker to 1,950. But this agent is able, in collaboration with all the 3 private sectors, to reach 1 to 200. We would have made extension profitable and commercialized. What is the drives? Why will the CCBF does this? My good friend Stephen says, and I like to read the book, always says, incentives, people respond to incentives. Incentives is what we call power. Power is not status, nor money, but the mindset change. Dr. Christine said it in a presentation. How do we do mindset change? How do we get people to move? We have dangled the carrot of $42 per farmer for every CCBF to reach per year, saying if you are able to reach this amount of farmers in a year, you'll be able to make average of $3,000 to $6,000 a year. Now, that was incentives and also the motivation for them to move. The question they will ask you, how do we do this? Then here comes, what kind of services can we derive? Sasakawa, the local government, and the private sector has created over 8 combos. A combo is a set of 4 to 5 services that a CCBF can provide, making profit. By working with 100 farmers, if you look at combo 1, he makes an average of $3,000. Nobody could earn that. That's enough incentive to say, yes, how would I do this? And how can I get this money? If you look at combo 6 on your slide, you find on the same 100 of farmers he's reaching, he's able to get 3,645. We could not have opportunity to break it down for you, but we can present it to, and we can present this data to you later. But the end game is what motivates him to do that services, taking the last mile delivery, working with the private sectors to deliver this. And that's where our 3 amigos comes in. The 3 amigos are the public, private, and SAA. The local government provides the technical mentorship and extension oversight and align this with the national agricultural policy. Why? Remember, he cannot reach every farmer, but the agents or the CCBF can reach ratio 1 to 200. Sasakawa comes in as a catalyst, identifying, onboarding, and training the CCBFs, while bringing all the other ecosystem players, the private sector, which includes of finance, because without finance, we can't get this thing moving. And the private sector comes and said, look, I'm willing to work with you. I need so much of quality and quantity number of grains. But the cost of extension is expensive. What if we all work together and deliver this in a cheaper way? Private sector will tell you, can we reduce our cost of doing business 30% with digital tools? Likely. But how do I reach the farmer knowing full well this farmer will deliver the goods to me. Now, that's why I call them the three amigos. They came together, they jointly mobilized the partners, bring all the financial institutions, the seed companies, NGOs, and digital innovators like Easy Agric to embed services throughout the system. At the end of the day, we were able to create a vibrant rural service economy. Why did they do that? What is their motivation? Without the CCBF, the farmer will definitely have high cost of input, low yield, and poor markets. The private companies, low uptake and bright dilution. Seed companies, they will never reach the number of farmers they want. Insurance company will definitely find out poor enrollment, fraud, risks, and costly mobilization. These are the reasons why they decide to join this approach. Then you see the other side. What was the value for them investing in this? They were able to increase their yield as farmers, lower their costs, because the CCBF did a last mile delivery. It was a one-to-one. There was really what we call a close-knit trust built, and that CCBF became the funding. At the insurance company's level, they were able to monitor the policy given to farmers. It's not easy to have this technology, and the farmer says, no, it did not rain. And the insurance company says, yes, it rained. So what does the CCBF does? It goes on ground, take photos, and share with the insurance company. The financial institutions, they lost a lot of money, but with better client profiling, they know who they are giving their money to, and they reduce their costs of doing business. Their processors had consistent supply and aggregation. So it was a win-win for all the partners that invested in this approach. A small responsible business model, because services delivered closer to the farmer, last mile delivery, where it is never possible for the extension worker to reach every farmer within a given season. But the CCBF is able to move home to home, by doing so, earning commissions from the private sector to deliver that service. Trading has been great. The number of farmers reached over a period of time has been better. Services have been offerings. CCBFs and farmers have built a relationship that makes it easy for all of them. I'd like to say thank you, and I will look out for more questions.
Thank you very much, Robert, for sharing our multidimensional experience from Uganda. And finally, in this segment, we are pleased to have Dr. Tawanda Hove, Senior Program Officer for the Digital Agronomy, at the Gates Foundation. Dr. Hove, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm not too sure if you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can, though it's not the slideshow mode. Yes, now it is.
Okay. So, right. So, thank you so much for having me, honored and distinguished guests. It's a pleasure to be making this presentation. I would like just to briefly talk about, the impact of digital agriculture, technologies, and innovation let me take that again, sorry. The impact of digital agricultural technologies and innovations and the public and private partnerships on empowering smallholder farmers. So, one of the things that I'd like to share is some of the studies that we've done in terms of our investments in terms of digital agricultural technologies, in particular digital farmer services. We've noticed that when farmers generally have access to digital farmer services, there's an income growth of about 30%. Productivity also grows by 23%. In terms of digital marketing linkages, the farmers that have access to them, the market access facilitates income growth of about 37% and productivity of about approximately 73%. Then finally, when you look at digital financial services, those that are facilitated, by digital services and tools, as a result of them, the income grows to about approximately 18%. Then productivity to approximately 38%. So that just shows you how digitalization in an agriculture or in a smallholder farmer context really catalyzes both income and productivity growth. So, but we've been making observations, in terms of the investments that have been, historically made, over the years in terms of in digital agriculture. Generally, from our research, we've got almost 1.56 billion startups. 1.56 billion worth of capital funding startups which are doing, agtech investments in sub-Saharan Africa. But, when we look at in terms of, the reach and the meaningful use, there are only a handful of countries that really can demonstrate, significant, engagement reach. And we are projecting, further growth, but it is not moving at the rate at which we think is fast enough. And hence, we're trying to make investments to catalyze this. So just to point out, some two examples of what, some of the digital technologies that have been making an impact out there, and they are mostly skewed towards extension. So there's Amakrushi in India, which has demonstrated reach of up to about 87%. And we project that maybe in about 2030 they've been at 90%. So this means that the landscape ecosystem, the extension landscape ecosystem is generally pivoting towards digital, because the extent of reach which these technologies facilitating is quite significant. For Kenya, which is one of the countries which is all the quite significant digital maturity in sub-Saharan Africa, we're seeing it slightly behind, with 4.8 million, farmers out of a potential 7.8 having access to about, 62%, having the reach of, digital farmer services. The projection is with investments, being done by governments, philanthropic institutions, and NGOs, we might be, and in private sector, obviously, we might be seeing maybe potential growth to about 91%. So already, we are seeing some significant or rapid growth in certain key geographies whereby the digital infrastructure is generally good, but that is not necessarily the case in other countries whereby this has not been made a policy priority. So in saying that, even in those geographies where there is quite significant use, you will notice that not all farmers, having meaningful use of these, digital solutions. This was what I'm sharing right now is just an excerpt from a study which we had with some of our partners, including 60 decibels and Beanstalk. You notice that of all the farmers who access, digital farmer services, only 27% have what we call meaningful use. And by meaningful use, what we mean is somebody who walks through the entire season engaging with the solution. Some might get a couple of SMSs on weather, on production information, but when it gets to actual meaningful use, we're 27%. So this speaks towards the quality of engagement and the extent to which, these solutions are user-centric. So from our perspective, whilst we can see impact in terms of growth in reach, there's still quite a lot of work in terms of making these solutions as relevant as possible to the smallholder farmers. So yeah, moving on to in-field results or impacts, because I think it's important for us to celebrate, the reach and the potential of digital, but we need to see the changes which are happening in the field. So we have two partners, for example, ISDA, which have a virtual agronomist, which is like a digital extension agent, which, having done a couple of RCTs, and impact evaluations, we've noticed growth in, cereal production, in particular maize, of about 66%. For example, in Uganda, some farmers, were starting off from a baseline of 1.8 tons, per hectare, but having worked, consistently up and applying, the virtual agronomist recommendations, we're seeing growth of about to about 4 tons per hectare, which is quite impressive at a smallholder farmer level. Then secondly, whilst we are seeing these impacts in productivity growth, we are also seeing that in terms of the farmer needs, or what farmers they are searching for, at times is a bit different to what us development agents usually think. So if you can see on this, that box chart with different shades and so forth, it is a collection of about 300,000 questions which farmers had made on a digital green platform, farmer.chat. I think I saw a colleague who shared. And it's surprising that only 0.5% of the farmers in Kenya were asking about maize. The rest were asking, about horticulture, about pest and disease, related to some of these cash crops and so forth. So this just shows us that for a long time, our messaging has been highly supply driven, and perhaps maybe that's the reason why we're not seeing, a higher percentage of meaningful use, because of the relevance of the content which the farmers have been having access to. So in terms of impact, I think, yeah, there's need to differentiate between, what is supplied and translating to, productivity indicators, but at the same time, the impact in terms of the user experience from the farmer's perspective, in terms of to what extent are they really learning new practices and getting what they need, not what we push onto them. So as a result of that, I would like to then just do a slight pivot and say, um, we are now, pivoting towards increased investment in AI advisory. This is a quite new and nuanced space. The farmer.chat example is a large language model driven, digital solution that can be integrated, with WhatsApp, Telegram, and so forth. But to make these successful, we know we need some very good foundational models. We need big corpuses of data such that we realize impacts. We need agricultural specific foundation models that are actually, having, local data sets which are coming in from the continent that then enable the whatever AI solutions to build to be very, localized and deliver site-specific advisory services and digital farmer services. So we are testing AI advisory to supplement public extension agents in quite a number of countries, for example, like in Bihar, India, also in Kenya. And from what we are seeing now is that even extension agents, they see value in the use of these tools, not only the farmers, but when there are questions which the farmers pose to them, they themselves can actually refer to these tools and provide, a much more accurate answer, or a better answer than they would have without the solutions. So I'm constrained for time, but what I would want to conclude on is, before I briefly talk about, the private sector pieces, there's generally been a challenge of literacy, hampering the scaling of digital, advisory services. And now with AI, we're now seeing, voice solutions which can customize to the farmer's specific needs, even avatars which can actually, like if you see on the left part of my screen, that is like an old farmer who's talking about, bee production, and she speaks in perfect Swahili. So unlike in the past 10 years, whereby when we talked about digital agriculture, we're talking about a static app in English or in SMS and so forth. Now we can have interactions using voice, video, text, in a multimodal basis, which makes the learning experience or the engagement experience for the farmer way much more better. So in terms of just the taxonomy of accelerating, digital advisories, that create an impact at farmer level, we are seeing that they are, we need to have very good information delivery and exchange. We need to have good digital public infrastructure, and we need to have digital, public goods and data services that power the building blocks that enable site-specific enabled AI advisory, which we believe is strongly the future. So in conclusion, I think all of this is wonderful. And just like our other colleagues had presented some of, the inroads which we are seeing in terms of, agriculture that is, supported by digital, there's a need, there's a need for us to develop solutions that are sustainable. And from what we are seeing, public governments generally, their resources are dwindling. We see a lot of pressure in terms of the ability of governments to spend on innovation. So we believe that public-private partnerships are actually the future of sustaining some of these innovations. And in addition to that, these partnerships are important because data is the new currency for scale, and we cannot achieve this without a united front. So we need the public and private sector teaming up. Secondly, digital public infrastructure is needed to be facilitated by government. So in as much as private sector would like to innovate, we essentially need the government to support the building of the essential blocks, in particular DPIs. Then, as I mentioned, there's new revenue models will need to be thought of, whereby, the incentives for the private sector encourage them to collaboratively, sustain these platforms in harmony, with the government. Then lastly, I'm sure as all of us have seen, there's been a lot of duplication in terms of solutions, whether it's from a back-end perspective or front end, but with the public-private partnerships, we'll be able to build unified solutions that could be, scaled, at a national or subnational level. So having said this, I would like to thank you and conclude by just saying digital agricultural solutions are shaping the future of extension and also market engagements for smallholder farmers over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho, for your very informative and data-rich presentation. And thank you for joining us so early in your time zone. We truly appreciate it. Thank you. Now we move into our panel discussion moderated by Dr. Bel Oloch, Strategic Partnership Director at SAA. Over to you, Dr. Mel.
Thank you very much, Sayako, and we really thank all the speakers who've given us wonderful presentations. And we are now moving into the panel discussion aspect, which is also be set up by a few presentations, which will help set the scene to be able to move to the question and answer session. And we have with us Dr. Junji Koide, Senior Researcher at Japan International Research Center for Agricultural Services. Also in the panel, we have Ms. Yenenesh Bezabi, who is the Lead Executive Officer, Agriculture and Horticulture Extension, the Minister of Agriculture in Ethiopia. She is the Director of Extension Services at the Ministry of Agriculture. And we also bring back Dr. Tawanda Ho, who just gave a wonderful presentation. But building up on that momentum, I would just like to bring back Dr. Tawanda Ho just for a minute. I know we are in extreme geographies. Tawanda is right now in Seattle, USA. People are still asleep over there. In Japan, people are going to sleep, so that's quite a wide geography. But if I could just bring you back, Dr. Tawanda, if you could just click on your video a little bit again, and just expand on this public-private partnership issue, which you just showed, how can it be structured effectively to scale digital solutions for smallholders? And if you may have any specific examples that you may give to demonstrate successful collaboration between governments, big tech firms, and farm organizations. Dr. Tawanda, please. I'm not sure if we lost Tawanda. Okay, while we're waiting for him to come back, let's move to Dr. Junji Koide. Dr. Koide will give you the opportunity to just give a presentation, which I'll follow up shortly with some panel questions for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Mel. Let me use my slides. Just a moment. All right. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, so I'm Junji Koide from Japan International Research Center for Agricultural Sciences, or JIRCAS. Today, I'm very honored to be part of this webinar as a panelist. I'd like to now briefly introduce one example of data-driven decision support for scaling farmer-centered technologies in African extension systems. So this topic is driven by a simple but very important question. Have farmers in Africa truly benefited from conventional extension services as expected? In fact, many empirical studies rigorously evaluating the impacts of agricultural technologies and policy measures in Africa consistently find similar results, while these interventions improve specific production output for farmers, they do not necessarily improve their household income or overall welfare. Then the question is, why is the overall impact so limited? One key reason, as noted in one of these empirical studies, is the existence of trade-off. As you know, many smallholder farmers in Africa allocate their limited resources across multiple production areas. As a result, improvement in one target area often come at the expense of others. So to support better outcomes, we always need to address these trade-offs in resource allocation among competing production demands. And of course, appropriate resource allocation strategies vary from farmer to farmer because each farmer has different levels of resources, preferences, and performance. So we need farmer-centered, tailored digital support based on individual data. Here is just one example. We developed a model that mathematically determines the optimal crop and technology mix that enhances farmers' food security and maximizes their overall profit, tailored to each farmer's available resources, preferences, and performance. I won't go into detail due to time limitation, but this model takes in various data such as farm size, labor, inputs, production records, food needs, available technologies, and output the optimal combination of crops and technologies, as well as the recommended adoption area for each. This is just a visualized example of model output. It shows how the optimal farming scenario differs from the current practices. And also, it helps us to understand whether adopting a new technology like intercropping with leguminous crops in this example is a good fit for that specific farmer. In Mozambique, we implemented this model in the field with farmers and tested the economic impact using a randomized control trial. Farmers were randomly assigned to treatment and control groups. Treatment groups received the tailored farm solutions created by the model, while control groups didn't receive these solutions. After a follow-up survey, we found that farmers who followed these solutions achieved around 80% higher total income compared to those who didn't, as indicated in this figure. While the model seems effective, applying it in practice is costly as it requires visiting each farmer, collecting data, running the model, and delivering results back to them. To address this issue, we are now developing a user-friendly application that enables farmers to complete the entire process from data input to optimal solution output on their own. Finally, I'd like to emphasize one last point. While data-driven decision support is effective by leveraging farmers' existing knowledge, its impact can be enhanced by integrating data accumulated through research, development, and extension services. So promoting collaboration among these stakeholders alongside the digitalization of digital support tools is very important for building extension systems that truly benefit farmers, I think. So that's all my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Koide, for that short, impactful presentation. And just as a follow-up to what you just presented, the tailored decision support models. What
Yes.
lessons can be drawn? What lessons can be drawn for scaling these models across diverse regions in Africa?
Yes, that is very important question. Thank you so much. You know, as I mentioned in the presentation, this kind of tailored decision support is sometimes quite costly and time consuming, especially when it comes to collecting the necessary data from each farmers and providing feedback to them. So that's why I think to scale it up across the diverse regions, it's very important to digitalize this kind of decision support tools. And considering that the network connectivity is very low or unstable in rural farming communities in Africa, I think the development of user-friendly application that works offline is also quite important to become more efficient and scalable. I don't know whether my answer switched to your questions. Is it okay?
Is it okay? Yeah. Thank you very much. And your presentation was very clear on some of these aspects, so we really thank you for that.
Thank you so
Moving
much.
back to Dr. Tawanda, I'll just talk about you before you disappeared. I know it's still pretty early in in Seattle, and you may want to go back to sleep in a few minutes. The power of big tech, you clearly showed excellent examples of how you're trying to harness all these AI technologies and decision support tools which exist in Africa to bring impactful outcomes for African farmers. And the key here is public-private partnerships, one of the slides that you showed last. How can that be structured effectively to scale digital solutions for smallholders? And if you could give me probably one or two specific examples which can demonstrate some really good, successful collaborations between government, tech firms, and farm organizations. Making or developing these tools is quite expensive, and probably collaboration is the way to go. If you could give us a few successful examples. Go ahead, Dr. Todd.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'll start off why, they're important, and to your, to your question on the structure. So the reason why we need, these partnerships, not only from a funding perspective, is for the quality of products, that we are requiring to deliver, like what my colleague was saying, who just finished these presentations, in terms of delivering site-specific or customized, solutions to the farmers, we need big data sets. Now, those data sets come from the government, some come from private sector, then you then can be able to train a model. So, because this technology is new, there are not too many examples of where this has been, successfully done. But I can say, if you look at Nigeria, one of the projects we're working with together with AFAS, and Sasakawa is also partnering, on, has been we've managed to get, the private sector to agree to work in a collaborative spirit whereby there is a joint, initiative where they collectively fund a national solution. So at the end of the day, in terms of sustainability, we need to have a very good revenue models, and these partnerships, when they are structured in a way whereby the private sector as an association of, people who create value, since they've been interested in seeing farmers buy products for them, or they themselves buy the outputs from the farmers themselves, they, since they have an interest, they can collectively contribute in a way which would have been difficult individually. And also from the government side, resources are quite thin. So them contributing maybe just a small fraction, but having nationwide impact is something that we are seeing is gaining momentum in places like Nigeria. Rwanda is one of the few examples I can say perhaps where is the 1 acre fund and the government have now already started deploying, the virtual agronomy solution at scale. Although private sector still requires, more data in terms of how to make that attractive, in terms of them financially contributing. But in terms of changes in the field, in terms of farmers getting better access to knowledge and information, we are seeing quite significant, changes.
Thank you very much for that. That's really very good clarity. And please just stay online because we have another question coming up for you in the question and answer session. Let's quickly move to Madam Yenyenesh Bezabi, lead for Executive Officer for Agriculture and Horticulture Extension, the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia. You may just give you a short presentation, then we have a panel question to follow up with that. You may go ahead, Madam Yemenesh.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Is it visible?
Yes.
Very
Thank
visible.
you. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am excited to share about Ethiopian Extension System, focusing on digitalization and pluralistic extension. Agriculture is a primary livelihood for 80% of the population and contributes significantly to the GDP, and the employ about 75%. Even if, however, agricultural productivity is very low due to various factors, subsistence, smallholder, environmental degradation, climate change, pest and disease, land fragmentation, and different constraints. So the Ministry of Agriculture identified the major focus areas, as you see on the left side: irrigated agriculture, mechanization, livestock development, horticulture, engaging private sector, climate resilient, and also the 10 in 10 program also designed. Number of farmer training center and development agent also increasing. We have around 14,000 or 13,699 farmer and pastoral training center, around 72,000 development agent. Now also we are producing the new development agent in Ethiopia. Then you can see here the number of extension personnel comparing different countries, and also DA farmer ratio as you see here. The other, we are working on digitalization or extension in mass communication to reach more farmer, developing policy, digital agricultural extension and advisory service roadmap, and also capacity building, develop digital solution, DA registry, farmer call center, digital studio, innovation hub, Telegram or chatbot, farmer registry, smart farming, and capacity building also the focus area. We also analyze the SWOT, like as you see, the strengths and the weakness, decentralized, well-structured extension system, large number of development agent, activate college, farmer training center. The weakness, weak coordination, linkage, limited resource and funding for extension. Accessibility issue in remote area, limited digital extension system. As opportunity, we also identified issues. As a threat, we identified issues. Then we developed a pluralistic extension system in Ethiopia to utilize various communication to bring more stakeholder and service providers, minimize the burden on public system, the funding or budget burden from public and to reach more farmers. We developed pluralistic extension. This is the process how to develop the pluralistic extension system, starting from steering committee, technical committee, and now the Council of Ministers has approved the pluralistic extension, and we are currently discussing with the Parliament Agricultural Standing Committee. This pluralistic extension proclamation has 7 sections and 40 articles. And the key features of the envisioned pluralistic extension system, there is service provider, beneficiaries, agricultural extension service, also identified around 9 services, regulation, deployment, service quality control, registration, legal framework, also the major features in this proclamation. As you see here, Minister of Agriculture, Ethiopian Agricultural Authority, Region Agricultural Authority, also here to work on pluralistic extension. So the service identified here, starting from promoting agricultural technology, providing service that will change the lifestyle and mindset of rural residents. So there is around 9 services identified in the pluralistic extension service in Ethiopia. So the major departure here is the public extension service will continue to be provided for free for all users. However, fees payment could be considered for special service delivery for future. Research organization, higher learning institutes, non-governmental institute, public enterprises, cooperatives, and private will give extension service based on certification and regulation. Registration, certification, and regulation also one of the departure. The other public extension service will be provided by Warada office or district office agriculture using FTCs and PTCs. Public extension will be free. Project-based extension service also one of a peculiar character in this proclamation. Extension Fund Secretariat will be established. Incentive for service provider and beneficiaries will be considered. Non-public extension service provider can give their extension fully paid, cost sharing, and also embedded here. Free service delivery also possible. High investment service requires significant investment in technology, knowledge, skill transfer will be defined by regulation like soil testing, AI service, synchronization, and different high investment demanding service will be considered. Non-payment service can be allowed. Service fee modality with payment, cost sharing, payment embedded, also considered here. Now, currently, this is the last slide, the 45th regular session of the Council of Ministers. After thorough discussion, the Council of Ministers 100% voted to forward the draft proclamation to the House of People's Representative, and now we are discussing with them about the proclamation, and we are giving them clarification and the details. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Yenenesh. If I just give you 30 seconds as we are winding up because of lack of time, you've given a very wonderful presentation. Now, looking at this pluralistic extension approach that you're championing and which has been passed by the Council of Ministers, how are you able to coordinate among public, private, and non-state actors to be able to manage and deliver inclusive and scalable extension services? Just 30 seconds.
Yeah. Now, in this proclamation, not only the proclamation, we will develop also different regulations. and also different directives and implementation guideline to work together with public and other actors like NGOs, development partners, private sectors, and also research also, and higher learning institutes. We will come together and we will work together based on, we have also agricultural authority in Ethiopia. They will focus on regulation, registration, and also certification and controlling the quality of the extension. So for future, we will develop regulation and standard directive to regulate and to support our farmers.
Thank you very much. Ethiopia is always a perfect example of an African country that leads and champions food security in the continent. Approximately 72,000 extension personnel. That's a big investment, which we are all trying to transfer into other African countries. It's called prioritization. Thank you very much. And as we finalize, we've received quite a lot of questions, the question and answer from the audience, which I also sent earlier. But due to lack of time, we'll compile some of these unanswered questions and share the responses on the website later on. But we just like to ask two questions. One directed at Dr. Emmanuel Kobenin, and another directed Dr. Tawanda. Emmanuel, if you're online, I'm not sure if you're online.
I'm online.
Yes. There's a question here from the audience. What are the prospects of AI in agriculture extension? And does it have the potential to replace extension practitioners?
Thank you. Again, yeah, the prospects are very high because there are many things. When you are doing extension right now, you need to be able to pass accurate information across to your clients. And some of those, like I said in my presentation, we need to move from blanket advisory to precise information. And you cannot do that without adequate strong database to support that role. So as far as I'm concerned, the prospects are there because farmers can get better advisory, really concrete information that will help them to improve on their productivity. Now, in terms of replacement of the practitioners, I don't see, yes, there are always the element of danger there. Science is evolving rapidly. AI also has been discussed globally, not only from the point of agriculture, but from my experience in Africa. Africa is so big. We have many farmers in the rural area. And of course, when you receive the information digitally, you still need hands-on. Hands-on will still be very critical. So digital tools are passing things all across easily, but you need that exposure, that support, technical support. So they will not replace all these practitioners, in my opinion. But the danger is always there as science continues to evolve.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Last question directed Dr. Tawanda. And this is from Nigeria, Federal University of Dutsima. How can African agriculture extension services secure sustainable funding to support the adoption of emerging technologies, given the reliance on donor funding and grants in early stages of growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. And my immediate response is we need to make sure that whatever services we design or implement create value for stakeholders such as the private sector who have an incentive to pay. So I'll give an example. You've got input seed company, fertilizer companies, crop chemicals. You've got off-takers, people who buy cocoa, people who buy coffee, people who buy maize, and so forth. If the farmers are more productive, they earn more. And if the farmers are not more productive, so extension is a function, it contributes towards that increased productivity. I think there's no debate about that. However, the challenge has been we've never taken a step back to understand what would be valuable for private sector to then financially contribute. Emmanuel spoke earlier on about data. So data is twofold. There is data which flows off, from the farmer, than the data which is flowing to the farmer, as insights and as information and so forth. And the quality which flows from the farmer, if we would invest in improving that, for example, what crops a farmer is growing, or what livestock does he have, what products is he consuming from an input perspective, at what point is he ready to sell. When those insights are available, they can inform and advise very good market intelligence decisions for private sector. But as long as we operate in silos and don't make these data sets, available to such key stakeholders, it's difficult to mobilize, funding. So in Nigeria, for example, we do have some work whereby, as I'd mentioned earlier on, we are going to be crowdsourcing sustainability funding from the private sector. We, as a philanthropic institution, stand up, the foundational solution, but the private sector sustains it, because we are going to prove value of how that translates to them selling or procuring more from these, valued smallholder farmer stakeholders.
Thank you very much. And I wish to thank all the presenters and participants for hanging on and being able to absorb all this very important information, which is a true reimagination of how we can scale up agriculture extension in Africa and the other emerging technologies. I'll give back to Sayaka, the MC, so he can lead the next process as we wind up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mel, and all the speakers for excellent discussion today. Now, to officially close the event, I'd like to invite Mr. Shuichi Suzuki, President of Sasaka Africa Association, to deliver the closing remarks. Over to you.
Right. Good evening and good afternoon, good morning, and the distinguished guest speaker and participants. As we come to close of this, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation on behalf of Sasaka Africa Association. Firstly, my heartfelt thanks to our co-organizer, IFPRI and AFAS, for their partnership and vision in shaping today's program. I also thank you all our distinguished speaker, panelists, and participants for sharing your valuable insights and experience and ideas. Special thank you as well to the interpreter and the technical team who made this virtual event run so smoothly. Today's discussion made one thing very clear. Agricultural extension in Africa must evolve, not only to integrate new technology like AI and mobile tools, but to respond holistically to the reality of farmers. We are reminded that extension is not just about innovation, it is about people, system, and trust. As a field-based organization, Sasaka Africa Association is proud to have walked this journey with smallholder farmer for nearly 4 decades. We know from experience that transformation happens when we listen, adapt, and respond to the diverse needs of those who feed the continent. We also recognize that global development landscape is shifting. With reduction in traditional aid, the call for local-driven, sustainable, scalable solution is stronger than ever. We believe that multi-dimensional extension, when we owned and led by local actors, can meet this moment. Let us take today's conversation not as a conclusion, but a beginning, and I encourage all of us to continue collaborating across sectors and regions to turn shared knowledge into meaningful action on the ground. Thank you very much again for your presence and commitment to more resilient and inclusive future for African agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shuichi-san. Now, before you leave, we kindly ask all the speakers who are still with us to turn on your cameras on so that we can take a quick group photograph together. And to everybody in the audience, we'd appreciate if you could take a quick moment to fill out the short survey shared in the chat box. Your feedback will help us improve the future events. So everybody, do we all have here? Dr. Rosebilter and others, is everyone here? Is everybody ready? Okay, so everybody smile. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good, thank you so much. So this brings our session to a close. On behalf of the organizers, thank you once again for your active participation and engagement. Thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day and evening. Bye-bye.